Welcome to the Mastering Business Skills podcast, where we interview successful small business owners who share their own journey, mastering the skills they needed to grow and be successful in their business. Learn the struggles, the wins, and all the things they learned along the way, so you can cut down on your own learning curve.
Welcome to Mastering Business Skills. Today we're talking to Jennifer Cresswell, the founder and principal at ThoughtGro, a business consulting company that supports small and mid-sized growth-focused business owners to scale or prepare their businesses for sale. A consultative and collaborative strategic partner with over 20 years of experience, Jennifer excels at connecting inspired visions to actionable strategies and seamless execution. From a foundation in engineering and corporate finance to high-growth leadership positions in small businesses, Jennifer's career follows the road less traveled. These experiences uniquely qualify her to guide business owners through strategic changes, process improvements, and successful exits, while ensuring their teams feel inspired and empowered. Her approach expertly marries process and creativity to build strategic alignment with accountability, operational efficiency, and communication that connects everyone from the boardroom to the front lines. Welcome to the show, Jennifer. We're so happy to have you.
Thanks so much. I'm happy to be here, Erin.
Thank you. And let's have you start off on telling us a little bit about what you do and what inspired you to start your business, because you made a kind of a leap from that engineering and corporate finance into your own business.
I did. And it's part of the reason I call my path the road less traveled. It really is one of those things, but that is important for everyone to understand that where you start is not necessarily have to be where you end. And I'm pretty happy about that. I wouldn't change my path for anything, but I certainly did not plan it that way from the beginning. What I do now, to answer your question, Erin, is really help small business owners and mid-sized business owners focus in on what they need to do to create a scalable business. And a scalable business is also a sellable business. So I'm really focused on helping them get more money, more time, and more decision-making power. A lot of times you start a business because it's something you love, right? Maybe you started as a lifestyle business and you're just, I just want to be able to do this. But then you have success and then you want to do the next thing. And before you know it, you've got a growing business and you're pulling your hair out. You haven't taken a vacation in 2 years. And you're like, what am I doing? When really, if you could stop, which no one can really stop, but really take a step back and focus in and put the right support behind you, create that foundation, you don't have to do it all. You can get some time back. You can actually be more profitable with more people that you're paying. And then when the time comes when you either don't want to do it anymore, can't do it anymore, or want to move on to something else, you have something that somebody else is going to want and would pay you for, and sees the value in all that hard work that you've put in because you've got the right people in the right seats, process to support them, and the revenue and profit that allows the business to stand on its own. That's what I help business owners create.
Oh, I love that.
Amazing.
Love that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I was talking to someone just the other day, and I never really thought about even selling my business. But somebody asked me the other day, well, what are you going to do when you retire? Are you going to sell your business? And I was like, oh, that's an interesting thought.
Well, and it is, because many of us don't go into it thinking about the end.
Yeah.
I've counseled a number of startup entrepreneurs who are thinking about the end. They're going, I want to get an exit in X number of years. I want to build this thing. And you see them really go after a lot of that venture capital and often PE funding as well, but someone who can really infuse their business with cash so they can grow very quickly. But the majority of business owners don't start that way. They're starting because they're passionate about something and they believe in what they're doing. And shouldn't you get something for your hard work in the end? Not everybody wants money, right? So you have to think about what's important. Do I want to leave a legacy? Do I want to turn it over to a family member, a friend, my employees even? Right. So it's not all about the money, but money is important. Because even if you do retire, you want to be able to live the lifestyle that you choose, rather than being potentially forced into something.
Right.
Yeah.
Point.
Jennifer, do you work with any or a number of solopreneurs, or is it more like corporations, smaller corporations, things like that?
The businesses that I typically work with are probably 10 plus employees, probably 10 all the way up to 80, believe it or not. It depends on the business. I work with a lot of service-oriented businesses. So think consulting firms, marketing firms, engineering firms, firms where there's a lot of people. And that's your people are your business because they're the ones providing services. Do I give support to solopreneurs? Absolutely. We all start somewhere, and I love to share my knowledge. So I'm happy to talk with them, but my services are not really geared towards their needs.
Right. Right. And do you find out of those solopreneurs coming to you that most of them are looking at an exit eventually, or are they not even focused there?
They're not focused on an exit. Most solopreneurs I talk to are focused on, building more of a lifestyle business. And I call it a lifestyle business as, I'm paying my mortgage. I'm, able to support my kids. I'm able to, do the things I want to do, whether it's, in my house, on vacation, etc. Although the solopreneurs I talk to, I often have to counsel them and say, listen, you need to take a vacation. You need that rest and relaxation to reinvigorate you, and then you can best serve your clients. But that's something everyone has to figure out for themselves. I'll put it that way.
Oh,
Right.
definitely. And what I guess motivated you to shift gears from what you were doing to opening your own business?
So I never pictured myself as a business owner. I'll put that out there. I think we've talked about that in the past.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I think I grew up, in corporate America, and I got a lot out of being in corporate America. It was a great place to cut my teeth, learn a lot of different things, learn more about what I liked, what I didn't like, and kind of work my way up the corporate ladder, so to speak. And then I parlayed that into the world of leadership in small businesses. I loved being part of a leadership team. I loved what I was doing. I actually left a job to go to a very small company when I was going to have my daughter. And I needed a different balance than what I had created. Balance isn't a great word, but I needed to be able to compartmentalize better and focus in different areas. Let's put it that way. And I helped a small business owner. We grew her business, actually quadrupled it, added a ton of people, all contractors, and then we sold it. And it was such a fulfilling experience to build something, help her get what she really wanted out of it. And we sold the business right before COVID. And the company that bought us, wonderful company out of Chicago, kept everyone on because nobody knew what was going on in the world. Of course, they handed me a new P&L and said, here, you got to make more money. And I was like, oh, okay. But luckily we did. We were focused in life sciences that got a lot of investment during the pandemic. And eventually I integrated to the two businesses, and I started thinking about what I really loved and liked doing. And it was what I had just done. And I knew that that's the business that I would start. I would go and do this for other people, doing it as a fractional chief of staff. So a strategic partner that they can trust, that they can use as part of their leadership team, and to even guide them in their leadership team. Create that alignment, help them build operational efficiency through the right people and the right process, and then provide that strategic hands-on support for implementation so that they can experience exponential growth or even just sustained growth. Because if you're not growing, you're shrinking. And people who are like, I'm happy with what I have, tomorrow that may change. You could lose a client. Another really good client could come in, and now what do you do? And you want to be able to adjust without throwing everything into chaos if something happens.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so we talk about mastering business skills. So tell us one skill or a couple, it doesn't have to be limited to one, but one that you have mastered that maybe you could share with the audience and they could either start learning about or implement using your tip right away?
Communication's a big one. I consider it one of my superpowers. And I don't think I realized what a superpower it was until I was at a company with a very eccentric CEO, great guy, but very eccentric. And I was put in a position that actually I connected him to the rest of the team who was doing the work and some of the lead consultants, and explaining to them that what they're doing was right. They're thinking about it the right way. The words that they're using with me are the right way. But in order to get their point across with this gentleman, they needed to say it a different way. And they looked at me very skeptically. And I went through my process and I said, use these words. This is what's important. And then they went off. One of them came back and said, you were right. That was the best conversation we ever had. And I think, there's a couple key things that you can do to better your communication. One is to know your audience. If you're a business owner, business leader, don't expect your team to know everything or care as much as you do. A lot of them are doing a job. And you know what? You need them to do that job. You don't need them to be another you. So know your audience. Who are you talking to? I almost say it this way. You might have to give the same information to your parents and your kids. You're not going to use the same words, and you're not going to describe things the same way. So look at your leadership team and your employees as two different groups, right? Or if you have a board that you're reporting to, your board does not need the level of detail that you might be going into with your leadership team. So knowing your audience and thinking about how what you're saying will land with them. I like to say be positive, even when you're delivering negative news. Again, not toxic positivity like, oh, you're getting fired, let's smile. Like, no, it's not like that. But there's a different way. Say you did a pitch, right, to a big client and it didn't go well. It's one thing to tell someone that couldn't have gone worse. What the heck was going on? You really need to work on something. That doesn't make them feel good. They probably already don't feel good because they know it didn't go well. Instead, you could be saying, that did not go well. What could we do better? Let's talk about what we can improve on the next pitch. Make it, bring the person into the conversation. That's a way to deliver bad news in a way that's constructive and has a more positive outcome. And I think there are a lot of business problems, I'll put that business problems in air quotes there, that are actually communication breakdowns. There's nothing wrong with your business. It's just what you're saying is not what your team is hearing. And what they're saying is not what you're hearing. So there's a lot more as a leader that I think falls on you to work on your own communication. And if you're not sure how, there's got to be someone that you trust. And you can say, if you heard this and this was the position, what would you think? How would you feel? That takes showing a little bit of vulnerability, but there's someone out there who you can talk to. And if you don't feel that you know anyone, my information, contact me. I'll listen to you for free and I'll give you my recommendation. But building your communication skills is going to be very key. And it's not just your customers, but it's internally to your people. That's a skill I think that I mastered by watching and thinking. And maybe, yes, there was probably a little bit of skill that I had to begin with, but it's something you can build and grow if it's not your core capability.
Right. I've had this very discussion with my husband not too long ago, because he's like, how could I have said that better to this particular employee that he was talking about? And I'm like, okay, well, when you said it like that, I said, this is what I hear. And that's not necessarily a good thing. Because that's what it sounds like to me. So I said, I'm not your employee, but that's what it sounds like to me. So yeah, we had that conversation not too long ago.
See, and he trusts you, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be somebody in your company even that you're asking. It can be a spouse, it can be a partner, it can be a friend. But it should be someone who's different than you. because that's the whole idea, is that you're not talking to yourself. And it goes for written communications too. Like what I think,
Mhm.
in the world of immediate responses, and when a text, an email, etc., and more business is being done over text, which is a little daunting because you don't have the ability to pull that back in a lot of cases, where
Right.
sometimes you can set an email on delay. Um, you really want to think about what you're saying. Did something autocorrect? Short is not always the best. Long also isn't the best because someone may just discount it. So there's a lot that goes into communication.
Yeah. I know myself, I have to work on that because I'm one of those that like short, sweet, to the point. I don't need a bunch of conversation about something, so I always have to kind of dial it back and say, okay, wait a minute. People need more sometimes than just a short explanation.
Yeah. No, and you're self-reflective on that too. You're self-aware, Sharon. So I think, that's the first step in trying to, and again, some of the people you're talking to, they might know that and be like, good, I'm good with that. And
Right.
some may not. And you learn that over time because you learn how clients prefer to be dealt with. And dealt with is probably not the best choice of words there, but if you think about it, how can you support them? How can you serve them? How can you deal with them? All three of those words have a different connotation. And as business owners, we use them all, I think.
Yes, I know Sharon and I have found over the years too, like one of the things we'll do if we have like a really important email to send out to somebody, we'll kind of send it to the other one first and say, "Can you read this and just tell me what, should I take something out? Should I fix something? Like especially if it's more of a heated um
Mhm.
situation."
Yeah.
Um yeah. Yeah.
A tip I would give anyone, because we're all guilty of, you know, writing and writing and writing, especially when it's a heated or an uncomfortable situation. We're like, oh, it's really getting
Yeah.
to us. Erase the two. Erase the email addresses in the to line or the CC or BCC.
Yes.
Write it all out and read it. That way you don't inadvertently send it before it's done. You're
Yeah.
able to look at
Yes.
it. It sounds like a silly thing, but how many times does it save us from just, okay, I need to take a deep breath.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
And
this
walk
is much
away.
more constructive. I will get what I need out of this. And
Right.
maybe saying all those things would make me feel better, but it doesn't help anything.
Right.
So get them out and then take them out.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And I found on the topic of communication too, like a lot of my clients are different in how we communicate. So I'm more like Sharon, where I'm like short and sweet. Like I don't need the hi, I hope your weekend was great, blah blah blah. Like none of that necessarily comes like naturally to me. So I'm just like, this is what I need, this is how, whatever. And but I've noticed that some of my clients too, like some of them are the same way. And you have to get used to that when you're working with people. Like when you first, especially when you first start working with people, you get an email and you're like, well, is that meant sarcastic? Is that meant like
Yeah.
serious? Is it,
Yeah.
but
Are they
it's
upset with
like,
me? Did I do something wrong
yeah,
already? No,
yeah.
you didn't.
Or,
That's just
or,
how they
or the
are.
ones where if you put four questions into one email because you would do that with another client, and this particular client will respond to one question but not the other three. And then so I've learned like you have to put different subject lines for every single talking point, and yeah, so you
Oh.
eventually get that down and it becomes easier, but especially when you're starting out, especially like when you're new to business,
Mhm.
it's something to get used to is that communication, learning how to communicate with somebody and learning that it's okay that everybody communicates differently. So
Right.
And
Right.
having, yeah, you're absolutely right. And looking at where you are early in your career and how you communicated, I mean, it changes through generations too. We've got more generations in the workforce than ever before. So how do you connect, as I say, the top of the organization to the front line? You have to understand what people are thinking, how they're interpreting things. And I like to say, as we get more experience, we have more judgment. We're able to make better judgment. But that all says that you're also keeping up to date on what the next generation, how they communicate, how they like to communicate. And what I mentioned earlier about texting, like you would never have thought to do business over text at all back when I had started my career. In fact, most people couldn't even text, or you were trying to use the numbers to put some. Yeah, I mean, yes, maybe I'm dating myself a little bit, but technology also
I'm right
moves.
there with you.
Technology moves so quickly now that you don't have to use it. You don't have to do what everyone else is doing, but you have to be aware of it and appreciative of how they interpret and how they absorb information. I look at that both, written versus video. I'll share another story with you. I think this is from my corporate banking days, when I was working with Amazon, and we would go visit Amazon, great company. We definitely had different styles at the bank. Everything was PowerPoint presentations, right? Limit the amount of information on the screen. You're talking, people are paying attention to what you're saying. Amazon at the time, and they may still have this policy, I don't know, they wanted you to bring a Word document to the meeting with written out with what, and everybody sat, hand out copies. Everyone sat there, read the Word document, then you started the meeting. And then you started talking about everything. And I remember the first time we were out visiting our colleagues, and I brought the Word documents because it dawned on me that, all right, we need to find a better way to get through, not get through some of the meetings, but just to be a little bit more collaborative. Again, I'm on the East Coast, Amazon Seattle. You have limited time because there's so much travel involved. I remember the first time I handed it out and everybody looked and they were like, okay. Dove right into and then literally you have like, I don't know, maybe 10 people sitting around a table reading a Word document, which would never happen in the bank, right? And then we started the meeting, and it was one of the most productive meetings we had. But that's another example where communication styles and working styles, if you're able to adjust to your clients, they're going to feel more comfortable, get a lot more done, and you're going to be that member of the team versus someone coming in and consult. I mean, I'm a consultant for sure, but I look at myself as a member of the team.
Mm-hmm. I think that's important too when you're working with clients, is to look at yourself as part of the team, not as a separate entity necessarily.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is important. And I think, this is probably not the most popular thing for a consultant to say, but I think when you're looking for someone, especially with what I do, fractional chief of staff, interview a bunch of people. You need to gel with them personally. You need to be able to be on the same wavelength from a communication standpoint. You don't have to communicate the same way, but you have to understand each other. And, you need to find the right person that matches, because that's how your business is going to go further. That's how they're going to really help you make the changes that are necessary, because change is hard for everyone. Even people who like change run into roadblocks when they have to make either too much change or not enough change. But typically, I would say your employees, they want to know what's expected of them, what do they have to do, and then they're going to go home at the end of the day. That's okay, but you need to help them through that change.
Yeah. So tell us, what is the next skill that you are personally working on or looking forward to learning?
Oh, that's a good one. I love questions like this because I think about, I consider myself a lifelong learner. I love learning things. They're not all connected, but I managed to find some things that I learn in one area, like for example, learning to make chocolates. Can that be applicable to my business? I don't sell chocolates. Don't come to me for my chocolates, but they're tasty. But I think one of the things, and business owners often need to be resilient. I do consider myself a resilient person. However, I think I'm still working on that. I'm still working on pushing toward an answer, right, with clients, rather than letting it be the potential and it's still a maybe. Get to the no, get to the yes or the no. And if it's no, that's fine. there's other people, there's other clients, there's many other people that need help and that I can help. So I think I'm working on strengthening my resilience. I think the last year or so has been a challenging one for many business owners with a lot of uncertainty. Even in the M&A markets, there was little to nothing happening last year around this time. That has since changed with the markets understanding how to deal with the uncertainty and understanding, how things are running. And this year, I think will be a much better year for businesses who want to sell, provided they are set up for sale. And I think that's where maybe in the past it might have just been revenue. Now it's definitely revenue and profit. In the past, there was due diligence. Now there's deeper due diligence because buyers want to make sure they're getting something that they can accelerate. So I'm getting used to hearing no a little bit more and just being resilient to know that there's a lot of other yeses out there and I'm going to go find them.
That's a definite good skill to have, for sure.
Yeah.
So what's next for your business?
Well, I've been focusing in on these fractional chief of staff services. I think, my business will be 4 years old in July, so that's an exciting milestone to reach. And I think really what I'm doubling down on is providing those specific services. I think when you start a business, you're kind of dabbling in, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. There's a lot of different things that you try. I did some communications coaching for a little while, decided that was not the lane that I was going to focus in. And I think, doubling down on these, being that fractional chief of staff, being that trusted partner, that's really the growth that I'm looking for myself.
Awesome.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So, is there any last thoughts that you have that you'd like to share with the audience? Whether it's about growing your business or an exit strategy or anything in between. We have kind of a range of listeners, anywhere from, people starting out in their business to people that are in their second act career. So,
One thing I would say is don't forget don't forget that there will be an end. Whether it's a retirement, whether it's moving on to something else, start thinking about what I'll call it. And succession planning can be a little bit of a scary term, but it's really about thinking about answering the questions who, what, why, where, and when. And what do you want from your business? Is money most important? Is creating a legacy most important? Do you have a social cause that you want to make sure it supports? Who is going to take over your business? And the answer can be no one. That is an okay answer, but you should start to think about, is it a family member? Do you want to sell? Do you want to get this? Do you want to sell to a company or PE, private equity? When? If you had to choose, when would this happen? Will it happen, in 10 years? Will it happen in 3 years? Just starting to think about these things, I think is helpful because ultimately, if you're not going to stay in your business forever, and likely none of us will, just because that's the fact of life, if you start coming up with the foundation and laying that framework, whether you're going to be in your business for another 10, 15 years, great. That framework gives you, again, more time to spend how you want, more money to spend how you want, and more confidence in making different decisions. If you want to sell, you're creating a sellable business. So my best advice is to always think about what's next. What might I do if I didn't have my business, or what do I want from my business? There's no wrong answer. It's different for everyone. And I think that can be even more difficult because there's not a specific answer that you're trying to drive to. So it takes a little bit more time and reflection.
no, I love that answer because I know Sharon and I have had this conversation recently about how, when we started our businesses, we had we had these plans and this is how we were going to do things and whatever. And as we've gotten older and things have changed for us, and we're like, oh, the business shifted, the way we do things shifted, and the way we look at things, and even the overall business for each of us. Now we're kind of moving into a different stage and delegating out a lot more, and kind of shifting around what we used to do and what we used to take on versus what we do now. So, and I know for me that was initially a struggle because I was like, but that I had the plan, and you don't expect it to change as you get older. You just think, I have the plan, I'm going to do that plan until I die or retire, whichever comes first.
I always joke and say that people are going to find me in my chair dead. That's when I retire.
And you know what? If that's your decision, there's nothing wrong with that decision. But it'd be good for you to make that decision versus for it to be made for you. And I think that's where you want to be in control of what happens. And even if it's, I've written it all out, this is what I'm going to do until I can't do it anymore. But then at the same time, you'll also know that when that happens, when that time comes that you're not doing it, what happens? And your clients will be taken care of, so and so might step in, etc. And you can put those pieces in place so that it ends the way that you are hoping it ends. But
yeah, definitely a good plan to put in place. And I like the thinking about it ahead of time, because sometimes you're put in that position. I mean, we just recently took on a client, and the person that was working with her before, I mean, just assumed she was going to work with her forever. And she ended up having health issues, and it shifted her business suddenly without her having a different plan. So I think it's always good to, I don't like to say have a plan B, because I don't feel like it's like a failure thing versus a success thing.
Right.
I think it's just as things change for you, being adaptable to changing your business and shifting things around.
Well, and it's not saying you have to make any changes now, but identifying some of those single points of failure, or some of those places that if something does happen, oh, that's going to be I'm going to really have to focus there. Even just identifying those gives you more control if something happens, because then it's like, okay, I know that this is an issue. I don't have the money to hire someone else right now. Okay, that's fine. But you know that maybe that will be your next hire if and when. Or, oh wow, I'm doing, there's all these jobs, I'm doing the majority of them. Maybe I should document my thought process and write down my SOP for the process, so that
Does this sound familiar, Erin?
get the flu, then so-and-so can at least follow the script and keep the lights on until I'm feeling better. I mean, I know those are some silly examples, but they happen all the time. I'm sure you both see this.
That's why Sharon started laughing, because we literally just had this team call for me recently, because I got everybody on a call and I sent an email and I said, I need to have a call, because I realized, like, I had a health issue and ended up in the hospital suddenly. And I realized as I was there that nobody, like, I was like, everything is in my head, even though I assumed that the team knows everything and could just pick up anything and run with it. I said, let's just get on a call, and, like, because they all ran with the different pieces and the different clients, like, filled in beautifully, but it would have been so much easier for them had, like, the missing pieces not been something they had to figure out as they went along, that that ththose couple days or whatever. And, like, they had some great ideas for me, like TT was like, write out, like, what did she call it, like almost like a docket type of thing, I think, or it might have been Sharon. One of them said, write out, like, what do we do, like, list each client and, like, what do they do and what do we do for them and how do we support them, and make sure that, because in my head, I'm like, everybody has access to my logins. They'll just figure it all out, and but it would be so much easier had I had a plan for how that was going to go.
Right.
So,
and then you're empowering your team, right?
Yeah.
So then you can start to see what they're capable of. And as you said, you're working on delegating more. So if and nobody's going to do it exactly the way that you do it. And we all know that. And that takes some getting used to as well, when you've also been doing it for so long. But just because they do it slightly differently doesn't mean it's bad. It could
Right.
actually be better and help to, further a client relationship, even though you were doing a great job to begin with, but now, wow, they gel even more, and now we can take it further with that client.
Yes.
And it
Yeah.
helps them grow. They feel empowered. They feel, inspired to do their best work. Well, that's only going to help you and your company do better. So there's a
Mhm.
lot of benefits, I think, to setting up a framework that is scalable and sellable, even if you have no intention of doing that in the near future.
Yeah.
Right.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. So, thank you so much for taking the time with us today and talking about all, that I feel like it's really important topics that we focus on to help other business owners kind of not fall into the same, problems or issues that we do, or, have to
Right.
reinvent the wheel on their own, that type of thing. And we are going to put in the show notes your links to your LinkedIn, your website. We have your free organized business guide. We'll have a link to that. How to do a strategy session with you. So all of that will be in the show notes, and hopefully people will be reaching out to you and get some help with their businesses and the issues that they're having. And for anybody listening, we thank you for being on and tuning in again. And we hope to see you next time. And we are now on an every other week schedule. So every other Thursday, you'll have a new episode from us. Thank you again.
Thank you,
Thanks, Erin. Thanks,
Jennifer.
Sharon. Really appreciate the opportunity, and everyone's welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. I love talking to new people and seeing if I can help or recommend others if they can help you better. So
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
thanks.